Hi, it's Scott Vogel on sex addiction, and I'm going to talk about some simple methods to overcome sex addiction. Sex addiction is a complex disorder that can take years to overcome. In fact, it's suggested that it could take 3, 5, even 7 years to overcome all the effects of a sex addiction. However, there are many simple ways sex addicts can battle their addiction. Sex addiction is a troubling disorder. It is a disease that affects every aspect of life for a sex addict. The sex addiction results in severe consequences for addicts, including social, emotional, physical, legal in many cases, financial consequences, occupational consequences, and spiritual consequences. All of these consequences can lead those struggling with sex addiction to feeling hopeless. However, while sex addiction is a very complex disease and disorder, there are simple ways that a sex addict can overcome their addiction. There's individual or group therapy, there's counseling. Those are simple but very effective ways to treat an addiction. Also, strong support from family, from friends, from spiritual counselors is very important in overcoming a sex addiction. Seeking help of friends and family also can help the sex addict struggle while they're going through their journey to recovery. You see, sex addicts face two main challenges in their battle with their sex addiction. The first challenge is separating the addict self from their harmful, unwanted, obsessive, and compulsive sexual behavior or behaviors. This challenge, if the behaviors are very serious, will often require inpatient or residential treatment. However, with a strong support network of friends, qualified therapists, sponsors, 12-step programs, and a loving and supportive family, this can help the sex addict to overcome their addiction on an outpatient basis over time. Seeking the support of a trusted spiritual leader is also an important element in the recovery process for a sex addict. The second challenge, which is more complex, is dealing with the emotions such as the guilt, the shame, and the depression caused by the behaviors that the sex addict experiences throughout their addiction and recovery process. Working with a qualified sex addiction therapist is vitally important. Finding one that has experience in 12-step sex addiction is priority, or finding someone with experience in working 12-step recovery programs, one who understands fully what it's like to work through an addiction. There are CSAT certified sex addiction therapists who are trained to work with sex addicts. The 12-step experience is important to be understood by the therapist, so as the sex addict works through, they can share with their therapist what's happening. In severe cases of emotional distress such as depression, despair, and hopelessness, inpatient treatment may be the best option. You see, sex addiction is a process addiction, and the experience is unlike other drugs and addictions. The process is where the sex addict has challenges in their life: stress, pressure, fear, anxiety, loneliness, tired, nervous, and rather than being able to fully deal with the emotions, the feelings, they start to become obsessed with wanting to medicate themselves, and they do that through the use of their sexual acting out, their obsessive compulsive behaviors. Then something triggers them that causes them to start to compulsively use what's called their drug of choice, whatever their acting out behavior is, whether it's pornography or prostitution or online chats or phone sex or masturbation. Whatever it is for that individual, that's a process. And afterwards they feel that guilt, that shame, that remorse. And in order to make those feelings go away, they start the process all over again, which makes it a process addiction experience. For those in recovery from sex addiction, 12-step programs are highly recommended as they work through their sex addiction. There's programs like SA Sexaholics Anonymous, there's SAA Sex Addicts Anonymous, and SLAA Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Those are the three most popular S fellowships and can be researched online to find out the differences in all three, or by checking out one of our other videos on 12-step programs. What these programs offer is group support, where you're around other sex addicts, or the sex addict is around others who make it so that the addict doesn't feel so alone. The program encourages abstinence from the unwanted, obsessive-compulsive sexual behaviors. It doesn't want a person to abstain from sex completely, but just focusing on stopping those behaviors that are creating trouble in their lives. 12-step programs provide support through attendance at regular meetings and working the 12 steps in recovery from sex addiction. Now, in some cases, therapists may recommend prescription medications, psychiatric medicines, to treat sexual addiction. According to Michael Herkov, PhD, recent research suggests that antidepressants, also called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, may be useful in treating sex addiction. In addition to treating mood symptoms common among sex addicts, these medications may have some benefit in reducing sexual obsessions. While medication may not be the only solution for all sex addicts, it can help some individuals to overcome the underlying challenges in mood disorders, and even in some cases help with their addiction. The most effective approach to overcoming sex addiction is to take a broad approach, combining individual therapy with group therapy and 12-step meetings, using counseling, medications, and support from family, friends, and spiritual leaders can help sufferers overcome sexual addiction and ultimately recover the lives that they want. So in review, sex addiction is a disease and a disorder. It comes with many, many challenges, both financially and legally, spiritually, emotionally. Consulting a qualified therapist is the smartest decision to make. Getting individual and group therapy, using 12-step programs, and in some cases adding psychiatric medication to the process. Visit our YouTube channel on sex addiction for more videos on sex addiction and recovery from sex addiction. Go to www.onsexaddiction.com for a free video explaining what sex addiction is, 7 symptoms of sex addiction, 4 traumas of sex addiction, the 4 faulty core beliefs developed by those 4 traumas of sex addiction, and the solution, 7 paths to success in recovery from sex addiction. And you'll also find more information about sex addiction and sex addiction recovery.